take addicts who are addicts because they're isolated and cut off, and we cut them off and isolate them more. And the panel came back and said, decriminalise everything. Take all the money we used to spend on arresting drug users, imprisoning drug users, all of that, take that and spend it on really good drug treatment. One thing you can say for the drug war is we gave it a fair shot.
The war on drugs killed more people in 2016 than U.S. troops killed in Vietnam War. For the first time in U.S. history, more Americans have died of drug overdoses in a single year than all those killed in the Vietnam War. The drug war has been exposed as a deadly and violent failure, and the federal government shows no signs of backing down. By Jack Burns, June 7, 2017. For the first time in U.S. history, more Americans died in 2016 of drug overdoses than were killed in the Vietnam War. Let that sink in. Last year's death toll in the war on drugs was 59,000 killed, while during the entire Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, 58,220 American service members' lives were lost. And, thanks to the immoral and futile police approach to the drug problem, there appears to be no hope in sight for the tide to change. As the Free Thought Project had previously reported, drug overdose deaths outnumber the number of Americans killed in automobile accidents each year. Answering the question of who is responsible for so many overdose deaths requires a careful examination of the crisis, which has now reached epidemic proportions. The principal players appear to be pharmaceutical companies, who knowingly manufacture dangerous opioids, essentially synthetic heroin, which, alone, kills tens of thousands. Big Pharma has been caught time and again pushing the pills onto the nation's physicians, who prescribe the dangerously powerful painkillers en masse, even to children. Then, there are the abusers, those who are addicted to opiates. Getting hooked on opiates is easy, according to the CDC, who recently recommended the powerful class of drugs be taken for no more than 14 days. According to the Washington Post. Noting that long-term opioid abuse often begins with treatment of acute pain, the CDC said that 3 or fewer days of opioid treatment usually will be sufficient for most non-traumatic pain not related to major surgery. Street pushers provide the missing source for the drugs when doctors will no longer prescribe the pills to patients who have demonstrated a pattern of abuse. Yet, thanks to the war on drugs pushing the sale of these drugs into dark alleys and the like, the quality of street drugs is questionable with every dose sold. Some opiates have even been laced with the powerful drug fentanyl, a drug so dangerous even casual contact with it can prove fatal. As TFTP reported, Inzis Pharmaceuticals, the maker of fentanyl, donated $500,000 to keep marijuana from becoming legal in one U.S. state. 1/3 of the overdose deaths in Ohio were linked to fentanyl, yet instead of creating a safer drug, the company was more concerned with combating cannabis legalization. Last, but certainly not least, is the government's own Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA. The D's only purpose is propping up Big Pharma while raining hell down on Americans for their choice of substances. The DEA even admitted, early this year, it has been trafficking large quantities of controlled substances into the country. Any decision to ban opiates or remove them from the market would likely further drive the drugs underground, increase crime, criminalize abusers, lead to growth in the prison industrial complex, and result in many more overdoses. In fact, that is exactly what's happening. The war on drugs is creating a de facto prison state. Some U.S. states are taking matters into their own hands. As TFTP reported recently, Ohio is now suing drug manufacturers for their role in the crisis, stating their desire to increase their bottom-line profit margins have crossed ethical lines and led to the deaths of countless Ohioans. Other states and police departments are also taking radical measures to fix the problem instead of prolonging and expanding it through the use of police violence. As the Boston Globe reports, as Gloucester Police Chief, Leonard Campanello pledged in 2015 that drug users could walk into the police station, hand over heroin, and walk out into treatment within hours without arrest or charges. The concept of help rather than handcuffs became a national sensation. Campanello is no longer police chief there, but the program is continuing in Gloucester. The concept of helping addicts instead of criminalizing them is such a success, it's been adopted by 200 police agencies in 28 states. This encouraging phenomenon shows that it's possible for law enforcement to listen to reason when it comes to drug abuse and actually helping communities. It puts police in the life-saving business instead of the spin-drying business of arresting and releasing, said John Rosenthal, a Boston resident fighting the opioid epidemic. We estimate that approximately 10,000 people have been placed into treatment. In Gloucester, records show that 530 people have sought help at the police station since June 2015. Steve Lesnikowski was the first person to get help under the program, and now, after 18 months of being clean, he says without the Angel program, I'd probably be in jail or dead. Fatal overdoses and drug arrests have decreased in Gloucester. A study by Boston University and Boston Medical Center provided compelling evidence for the Angel program's efficacy. In 417 cases where a person who visited the Gloucester police station was eligible for treatment, police data showed that 94.5% were offered direct placement and 89.7% enrolled in detox or other recovery services, according to Dr. Davida Schiff, a BMC pediatrician who was lead researcher in the study. Those numbers, reported in December by the New England Journal of Medicine, compared with less than 60% of direct referrals from hospital-based programs, which recruit patients who visit emergency rooms with substance abuse disorders, Schiff said. Doing the opposite of the war on drugs is what truly helps people. It is also important to mention that the opiate addiction, overdose, and accidental death problems might simply be avoided if, ironically enough, marijuana is made legal nationwide. A little over half of the United States have legalized cannabis in some form, leaving nearly half of the remaining states and their residents with no access to legal weed. As TFTP has documented on several occasions, cannabis holds the promise of helping opiate addicts kick their addiction by substituting their cravings for opiates with the non-addictive pain-killing properties of marijuana. And it's not folklore. Doctors have experimented with cannabis as a substitute for opiates with high degrees of success. For now, the Department of Justice, DOJ, under the direction of Attorney Jeff Sessions and his staff, has threatened to roll back the progress cannabis activists have made in the last 8.5 years. Joining the DOJ is the DEA, which refuses to reclassify cannabis, and remove its current status as a Schedule I narcotic, alongside cocaine, LSD, and heroin. Image, http://pixel.watch/QT7. All of these moves and potential moves by the DOJ and DEA will only make the problem worse unless states like Ohio take measures into their own hands. Now that many in Congress have addicted family members, children, siblings, and friends, the matter has been taken much more seriously. The idea of treating an addict with compassion instead of violence is a revolutionary notion in this country. However, in other countries, such as Portugal, its effects have been realized for more than a decade. In 2001, the Portuguese government decriminalized all drugs. 15 years later, drug use, crime, and overdoses have drastically declined in Portugal, exposing the disturbing reality of prohibition. Police departments choosing compassion over kidnapping and caging people is the solution, and this program's massive adoption by hundreds of departments across the country is nothing short of bombshell. It is revolutionary, and will undoubtedly lead to progress. However, there is still a long way to go. This is how change comes, not through the barrel of a gun but through empathy and peace.
Early morning in mainland Europe, two white vans are quietly being loaded full of cocaine, hashish and ecstasy. They're being readied to move nearly 4 tons of narcotics. Authorities have been trying for decades to contain the global trade in illicit drugs. The drugs in these vans will be taken to an incinerator and destroyed. It's a journey the Portuguese police make every month, and they know there's no end in sight.
Our job is to try to make it as hard as possible for the drug traffickers to sell their product. But it's not a fight that we can win.
This is the story of how one country sparked a global movement for change. At a Portuguese incineration plant, the drug squad prepares to burn their latest haul. For years, Portugal took a hard-line approach to drugs.
The policy was that all people caught with drugs, regardless of the amount and even if they were for their own personal use, will be legally prosecuted as drug traffickers. They will be brought into court and they may be sentenced to some time in prison. But the hardline approach didn't make a difference regarding people stopping use drugs.
In the 1990s, drug use spread to every part of society in this small European country. 1 in every 100 of the population were believed to be addicted to heroin. Simply incinerating their supply was no answer. The country needed to forge a radical new approach to drugs. In 2001, Portugal came up with a policy that would put its people first. A new law enabled citizens to possess small amounts of any illegal drug. It would no longer be a criminal offence for mostly casual users to enjoy their vice of choice. State resources could be focused on addicts. Instead of being punished for their dependency, they'd be offered help.
All this area was people using, and
now they are more concentrated on this field here.
Yes, yeah, it was an old factory, and they are using that.
Psychologists Maria and Rachel are state-funded outreach workers. Every day they visit drug users to offer clean needles, smoking pipes and advice. They call this approach harm reduction.
Yeah. We respect their space, you know? Yeah. We are not like, come on, get to treatment, you have to stop. It's not what we say, you know?
In their time, if they want, we help them to go to treatment.
Decriminalisation has removed much of the stigma addicts felt and the fear of prosecution that stopped them from seeking help.
Agora fumo muito heroína.
It's easy to them to get to us and say, okay, I have a drug problem and I need help. They don't have to lie to us. It's like, okay, I'm using and I'm not afraid to get in jail or something like that. And I think this is a big, big difference, you know.
90% of Portugal's anti-drugs resources are now spent on treatment and prevention, 10% on policing and punishment. In the United States, it's the opposite.
Em certas pessoas já mudaram, porque já aceitam a toxicodependência como uma doença. Antigamente o toxicodependente era generalizado, um bandido, porque consoante o tempo vai passando, as pessoas viram que o toxicodependente por vezes é inteligente, é bastante inteligente e que não é a droga que tira a pessoa, que deixa de fazer que a pessoa não seja aquela pessoa.
Since decriminalisation, drug-induced deaths have dropped from 80 in 2001 to just 16 in 2012. Over the same period, the total number of heroin addicts halved. Portugal's experiment defied the fears of opponents and broke a global policy taboo. But for all its success, the new approach did nothing to address the supply side of the drugs trade. Though citizens weren't now being arrested for possessing drugs, the police were still chasing their dealers. Globally, criminal gangs and drugs cartels continued to dominate a drugs trade worth over $300 billion. The countries where those drugs originated continued to pay the price they'd been paying for over a quarter of a century.
In the Colombian capital, Bogotá, the polls opened with a minute's silence for the three candidates killed during the presidential campaign. It was the culmination of weeks of terror. The man expected to win is the Liberal Party's César Gaviria. He arrived surrounded by bodyguards and a media posse. He's pledged to continue the present administration's hard line against the drug cartels.
The cartels in Colombia by 1990 became almost all-powerful. Escobar was able to do terrorism in a way that only probably Bin Laden has been able. Blowing up buildings and bringing down planes and killing policemen one by one. It was really a threat to Colombian democracy. They were scary times.
When he won the election, Gaviria vowed to take on the cartels in his own way.
You have to fight cartels, you have to militarize the whole thing to show that these people could go to jail. At that moment, we had to do it.
Gaviria oversaw the dismantling of Colombia's drugs cartels and the killing of their most infamous leader, Pablo Escobar. But after 4 years in office, he seemed to have made little lasting impact.
Whereas once they grew coca plants for cocaine production, now it's poppy seeds. 1 kilo of heroin sells in New York for $160,000, 10 times the price of cocaine.
The war on drugs really failed. And at the end, what you see is no matter what you do, the drugs gets to the US. The life of Colombia has been really, really difficult. We have suffered so much violence. You have to look for a way out. You have to look for a solution. We know that just repression, just prohibitionism doesn't work. We know it for certain. We have lived that.
The drug-producing countries of Latin America are following the lead of Portugal in demanding change. But it's the country that began the war on drugs that might just bring it to an end. Here in America, they're now selling marijuana in the mall.
Citrusy, it's sweet, it's tropical.
Yeah. And this one?
This one's gonna be a little more earthy. A little more pine than citrus, but definitely a really good strain.
In 2014, Colorado became the first US state to fully legalize cannabis.
Hi, how are you? Good, how are you?
Within a year, it had already become a $700 million business there. Among the new industry's biggest players, Medicine Man is testament to the growing impacts of a new breed of cannabis capitalists.
When my brother and I started this, and my cousin Frank was our first employee, and we stood right outside the doors outside here, and we said, what do we want to be? And by the end of that discussion, we said, we want to be the Costco of marijuana. And at the time, we were really thinking of only cultivation. Now we're the leader in this industry in Colorado, and our vision has changed. So now we want to be the Costco of cultivation and the Starbucks of retail. You know, last year we did about $9 million. This year we'll do about $18 million in business.
In Andy's purpose-built plant, 50 different marijuana strains are grown, trimmed, dried and cured to develop their flavor and potency. It's cultivation on an industrial scale. Yet Colorado law requires every plant to be tracked throughout the process, from seed to sale. Legal controls are helping move marijuana away from the black market and into mainstream society.
Just as you would see somebody having a casual drink on a patio, you might see somebody around the corner just taking a quick hit of a bowl.
Welcome to the joint rolling class. Once you feel like you've got enough there, slowly start rolling it between and move your fingers in slowly.
In one room, they taught you how to roll a joint, which is really cool. I rolled my first joint today. It was pretty awesome. And then after that, they taught us how to roll our own sushi, which was really cool. I've never done that before.
It's kind of a great mix of people. Everyone was really friendly, a little high.
Testament to just how mainstream marijuana has become is the fastest growing part of the industry, known as edibles. There's a plethora of food and drink products designed to appeal to a public who may never have smoked. Infused with cannabis oil, edibles offer an example of how legalization enabled regulation. In 2014, Colorado introduced strict new rules on the packaging and potency of these products. For the industry, it's become a necessary part of building trust with the public.
December of 2013, a couple of leaders in Colorado came out and gave warnings that, reefer madness was about to ensue in Colorado, and that people said, whoa, boy, kids are going to be using marijuana in great numbers. And shortly after legalization, they had to retract what they said.
Initial research has suggested marijuana use by teenagers actually fell. Meanwhile, the state reaped revenues of $76 million from fees and taxes on marijuana sales. That's set to rise to nearly $100 million in 2016. And with it, the funding of schools and the police it's been earmarked for.
Another great benefit about this industry is choking out the black market. Whether that's the cartels or organized crime, we are taking their customers from them, and we're going to choke them out to almost non-existing.
Colorado's experience helped to trigger a momentum for change across the United States. Almost half of American states have now taken some steps to legalize and regulate cannabis.
Many people still say, well, we don't know what will happen if this is free, if we decriminalize the production and the consumption of drugs. They should look at Portugal and Colorado. Today is a very legitimate issue. I have no doubt that the world is going to move to regulation instead of prohibition. It's about abandoning something that doesn't work.
14 years ago, Portugal's experiment set a bold new path for dealing with drugs. The shift it prompted could be about to reach a critical global mass.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done... Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before,
Sheriff's getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.